Welcome to Meet at the Apple, presented by PC Richard & Son. I'm Vito Calise. That's Jonathan Barron. And today on the show with us, we're doing like a collaboration. I mean, like, I wouldn't even say this is an interview. This is like we're bringing our shows together because we're here with Tommy Lugauer, Positive Tommy.
Guys, appreciate you having me. Happy to be here. Beautiful day as the Mets look to take the second game of the series against the Nationals. Pumped up. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And, you know, Vito and I, we love having guests on the show. We've had Evan, we've had Mike, but you are a perfect guest for us because our podcast, don't know how familiar you are, but we consider it to be a glass half full podcast.
Love it.
And so when you flip on the station, the fan, 2 to 6:30, drive time, Evan and Tiki, Tommy and Sean Marash, shout out Sean, good guy. We'll talk about Sean in a bit. You hear Positive Tommy, you see him on Twitter, and we're on the same wavelength. And I think that doing the show together, Vito and I, last year, team got off to a bad start. We stayed positive. We saw what happened.
Mm-hmm.
This year, tons of ups and downs. Easy to get negative, but I feel like we've learned what is the point in getting negative, right?
Yeah, so for the audience, I'll give a quick genesis of Positive Tommy. So I just turned 40 this year.
Happy birthday.
I appreciate it. So for the first 38 years or so, obviously, I didn't start watching sports till I was like 3 or 4, but for the first 35 years of my life, I was a very negative Met fan. And I woke up one day and just the business I'm in, look, negativity sells, and I understand that. But I said, you know what? As a fan and just as a personality, for my own self-being, I'm going to just be positive because I can only control how I react to a game. I can't control what the players do. I can't control the outcome. But what I can control is how I react to the outcome. So that's number one. And number two, I felt like it was important, especially with the platform at WFAN, to give the Met fan a positive voice that they can lean on. Like, it's easy to pile on and be negative and scream. There's 162 baseball games. For me, I thought it was so important, and that's why I am so, steadfast on sticking with Positive Tommy, because I think it's so valuable to the Met fan to have a voice that is positive. And we were rewarded with a great run last year, and I believe we'll be rewarded with a good run this year. And I would advise anybody, it's just a great way to go about sports, because if you think about it, your team, even if you have like a dynasty, they're going to lose. Like, you lose games, you don't always win the championship. If you sit there and drive yourself crazy, the year they do win the championship, you're going to look back and go, I didn't enjoy it because I was worried about a loss to the Pirates in June. You know what I mean? So you always have to take everything, sort of that 100,000 view seat and just sort of look at the big picture. So that's really where Positive Tommy started. Last year, Memorial Day weekend, the Mets went on their run, and we've carried on to that, and I will stick with it for sure.
I didn't even think about the aspect of you having to you work at a place like WFAN and you hear every caller for the hours you're there.
But these are the craziest of the crazy.
That's what I'm saying,
the FAN caller.
Yeah,
that's a thing.
It probably represents 1% of our audience, but it's the most passionate in a lot of ways.
The loudest voice.
The loudest voice. They pick up a phone. They're locked in. And more often than not, and you see this with comments, whether it be on social media or phone calls, most people that are pleased with something, they just kind of move on with their day. And when they're upset about something or they're whatever, that's the ones that'll comment on things, right? Or they'll call the radio station. So not to say that we don't get positive phone calls, but the negative days or the losses, you get a lot more of those fiery phone calls for sure.
But what I was getting at was honestly, there's some days where, as mad as the Mets game could make me, when I'm driving home and I'm listening to the radio and I'm listening to what people are saying, I'm going even more insane. Because like you said, sometimes when the negativity builds, you're just getting mad at how can you be this angry? And you don't even, and the amount of people you hear yelling on the radio who don't even know what they're talking about.
Yeah, they're just airing their frustrations. And, I look at it like this. Like even this year, for example, okay, someone will call up because they felt Mendy should have went to this reliever or should have kept this starter in longer. And it's managers across all baseball, they look like geniuses when the bullpen's great. Mm-hmm. And if the bullpen struggles, they don't look good. You know what I mean? He's just doing his job and he is going about it the best way he feels fit. And a lot of the times, if it goes great, he's a genius. If it goes bad, it's wrong. But it's doesn't mean it was the wrong decision. You know what I mean? And I think that there's a lot of people that like to be, and this is great. This is what makes Sports Talk Radio great. But a lot of people like to just view that one loss as, oh, the sky is falling, the season's over. It's like if you just take a step back and you realize, look, the Mets are on the precipice of going to the playoffs for the third time in the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
That is something for me. Like I said, I'm 40. That is not commonplace. We are in such a great era of Mets baseball. And I think, and I've also, this is another thing about positive Tommy. I'm not here to put down anything that has happened in the past. I just focus solely on the present and on the future. And I believe with Steve Cohen, David Stearns, Carlos Mendoza, of course, Soto, Lindor, Pete, the nucleus, all the young pitchers, McLean, we'll see him today. They are in such great hands. If there was ever a time to be positive about the Mets, we are living in that time. So I think that there's just a little bit of skeletons in the closet, maybe a little PTSD that I think some of the fan base just needs to knock off. And that's part of why I do what I do, because there's always that, oh, we're playing the Marlins at the end of the season. Oh, we got to go down to Atlanta. Oh, but the Yankees. Oh, but this. It's like whatever happened in the past has no bearing on what's going to happen this year and the future. And I think once we have that mindset, you'll realize that that's the case.
You know, Tommy, I want to piggyback on something that you just said about how Steve Cohen, David Stearns, Carlos Mendoza, this regime, and I totally agree with you. I think that there's a lot of waiting for the other shoe to fall because of what we've experienced in the past. And I also know people are impatient. And like, you look at the Dodgers and their new ownership group, and they took over back in like 2012, I think it was, and it took them 8 years to win their first title, and that was kind of a Fugazi title, the COVID season, and then another 4 years to win a real 162-game play at stadiums, max capacity, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on in the Mets organization under the surface? You know, people look at the major league team, and a lot of people don't pay such close attention to the minors, and I get that. There's a lot of sports, and you know, people don't have time to be checking in on the Rumble Ponies and the St. Lucie Mets and the Cyclones every night. But this farm system truly is one of the best in baseball, and there are guys at every level that are bona fide future major leaguers. The Rumble Ponies right now are in the championship round. The Cyclones just won the championship. The Rumble Ponies rotation is 5 deep with guys that are going to pitch in the major leagues. Hopefully health obviously holds up. The Syracuse Mets have Carson Benz, Jet Williams, Ryan Clifford. The Rumble Ponies have Nick Morabito, AJ Ewing. Who am I missing here?
Did you say
Chris
Jack
Suero?
Winiger?
Jack, yeah, well, he's one of the pitchers.
Oh, you're just talking position player? Sorry.
I'm just talking, every level of the system has guys that are going to help the Mets win in the future. And plus, Juan Soto's here for another 14 years. He's just 27 in October, and this guy is having the best season we've arguably ever seen in Mets history. There is so much to be positive about. Like, the window is just opening. So I love that you said that. And I think the positive Tommy thing, like, it's going to go on for, dude, this could be a decade. It could be more than a decade.
Absolutely. I plan on it. Did you mention Jet Williams?
I did.
Which is the greatest.
Huge Jet Williams fan.
I think it's the greatest baseball player name of all time.
You want to hear something? So we met Jet a couple of years ago, and we asked about his name. Because he's from Dallas. It's nothing to do. It's not like Evans Jet. You know, he named him after the football team.
Yeah, of course he did.
Not like that. We asked, like, why did your parents name you Jet? And he said, my dad wanted a name that he thought would sound really cool when I was walking up to the plate over the PA system. Seriously.
That's awesome.
How badass is that?
Because I feel like it's like when I played MLB The Show back in the day and I created a player. If he wasn't called Tommy Lugauer, it would be called Jet Williams. Like, it's the perfect baseball player name. That's why, like, if they traded any prospect away, it's like, all right, fine, you got to trade prospects. Do not trade Jet Williams. He has the greatest baseball player name of all time. One of the things that we get a lot of on the fan as far as a caller, feedback or pushback is the philosophy that Mets have taken on with signing starting pitchers. And the reason why I am in favor of what David Stearns has done here is, number one, I don't like signing pitchers to a lot of years and a lot of money. Unfortunately, and with this, we could do 4 hours on this, but unfortunately, pitchers just get hurt. So when I look at Corbin Burns, Tommy John right out of the gate.
People were screaming for Corbin Burns in the offseason. Tanner Scott of the Dodgers.
Correct.
Disaster.
Exactly. So I think one of the reasons why they haven't done that is because of that. And the other reason, and you're starting to see it now, why they sign guys to shorter-term deals, McLean, Tong, Sproat, the guys that are on their way. David Stearns knew he had these young pitchers. So he figured, let me sign guys to incentive-laden deals. I say this, and I say this with love. It's kind of like an island of misfit toys. You take a Clay Holmes who is a reliever. We're going to turn him into a starter. We're going to take a Sean Manaea. We're going to add a new pitch. We're going to bring in a Griffin Canning who didn't have a lot of success with the Angels, and we're going to get him into the pitching lab. Quintana, Severino. It has worked, and I think they're ahead of the curve. I think they're ahead of the curve on the, I don't know if the Mets have called it piggybacking, tag teaming, but the Holmes, Manaea, even what they've done with David Peterson. I think the Mets are so cutting edge, and I feel like the marriage between Cohen, who is more, or Steve Cohen, who's more in the, Juan Soto, the Pete Alonsos, the big fish, and then Stearns was brought here to be the guy who's like, you know what? I'm going to find a pitcher that maybe another team didn't value, and I'm going to sign him to a 2-year deal, and we're going to transform him into a better pitcher because of X, Y, and Z. And I think that marriage is a perfect way to go about it. Spend here. We're going to spend. Steve, he wants Soto. We're going to get him. But David, I need you to handle the rotation. That's why I love this pairing.
And the bullpen, too. I mean, there are a lot of guys that have pitched innings for the Mets this year. The Chris Davinsky's, the Brandon Waddells, the Justin Garzas, the Austin Warrens of the world. Those guys have combined for a sub-3 ERA in the aggregate. These are guys who fans don't talk about, and they've contributed heavily, and that's where David Stearns, throughout his career, has made his mark. And the young guys that come up, they're not making the money, right?
Right.
Like the 2020 Dodgers, that payroll was inflated because of guys like David Price was on that team. He didn't throw a pitch in the World Series. It was young guys that weren't making a lot because they develop, they draft, they scout well, they do all these things. That's how you win. That takes time to build. That's the impatience of the fan that I wish people would just, back off a little bit. It's not an overnight process.
Yeah, and I think it's not. And I think also when you look back to the deadline, I also look at the moves they didn't make in a positive way. They didn't trade Mark Vientos, which I, for one, was so excited about. I think Mark Vientos has such a high ceiling. And what I love about Mark is the bigger the game gets, the better he gets.
Swaggy V.
I love that. To me, that's such a sign of a winning championship player. Acuna, who I'm a big fan of, he is a Swiss Army knife, a guy that can win games in multiple different ways. Base running, defense, could get you a hit. When you look at a team like the Dodgers, they have a ton of guys like that. You need the stars. You need Ohtani. You need Betts. You need Freeman. So you need Pete. You need Soto. You need Lindor, etc. But you need the Luis Angel Acuñas of the world to be the role players. Beatty, a guy that a lot of people had given up on. Look how he's flourished this year. And I think Mauricio, with given the time, obviously coming back from an injury, he will show the full potential that he has, which I think is through the roof. And we've already discussed Jet Williams. So they are really building this the right way. And I could feel the excitement. You could see it at the park this year with the fans showing up and the pride that they have for the team. And it's great. I really think we're heading into a golden era of Mets baseball.
We talk to guys all the time about like how cool it is to like move up in the organization together. But this time with these 3 pitchers, it's the first time you've actually seen it all happen at once. Usually it's, like Mark Vientos comes up or Brett Beatty comes up and then somebody follows and then Luis Angel Acuña comes up at some point. But seeing these 3 come up at the same time and just absolutely deliver and just be the thing that like has helped put us into that postseason position. Like Nolan McLean, obviously he's most likely not going to pass 50 innings. He's going to be under the rookie of the year eligibility. But like, if this team makes the playoffs and Nolan McLean is starting games, and I know the postseason doesn't count towards that voting, but it's hard to not even look at him as rookie of the year for somebody who's able to put a team in a position the way that Nolan McLean has been able to basically put this team on his back going all the way into the end of the year.
Yeah, I think Nolan McLean, first of all, he's passed every single test so far of what it is to be an ace. Whether it was his major league debut in front of his family here, off of a bad loss where the team was scuffling, and here you are making your first start at home, packed house, against a really good Mariner team, and he was great. Then he went down to Atlanta, gave up a run or two early in a place where the Mets have had their struggles, and I think that, at least from a fan base perspective, you're on pins and needles. He passed that test. Against Philly, against Detroit, like he has passed every single test. He reminds me in a lot of ways of Jake, just the quiet, not very, where Tong's more animated on the mound. You're going to see, I think, a big personality with him. McLean is that bulldog. He's an athlete, right? He's pushing plates. He's eating the Wagyu steaks, reflection of perfection. I think he's passed every single test. And I'm old enough now to have seen this now for the third time here. I remember Generation K, and I love all three of those guys. I know it didn't work out for all of them. Izzy had a nice career. And then, of course, with Jake and Harvey and Syndergaard, et cetera. And now we're seeing it again. And there's nothing more, and I'm a little young for Doc, but I was around. There's nothing more exciting as a fan than when you have great young starting pitching, because I don't care what happens in baseball, what changes, what analytics, great starting pitching wins championships.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the name of the game. That's the franchise's thing. Tom goes back to Seaver and Ryan and Matlack and Kuzman. So it is another installment, another generation of that. And like we said, many more guys to come. By the way, Nick Morabito was the other Binghamton Rumble pony.
You said Nick Morabito.
Did I say? Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we got that in.
That's been killing you. That's been eating you.
Yeah, it has been. I've been sitting just waiting to get that one out there. Now, I want to ask you a question. How would you categorize Evan when it comes to the positivity/negativity spectrum?
Okay, so in order to understand Evan, you have to understand his entire history of fandom. We're talking about a Met fan. We are talking about a Jet fan.
By the way, we are both the same.
We are talking about a Islander fan. You guys Islander fans?
We're Ranger fans
Okay,
here. I mean, it's not like
Ranger
they're, rich with cups.
Right. Their fans think they're great.
Are you an Islander guy?
So I'm a Long Island guy. They will always have my support. I say they always have my axe, my bow, my sword. I grew up like 15 minutes from the Coliseum, from the Collie. So I'm not a huge hockey guy.
Okay.
But if I had to pick a side, the Islanders have my support. If they ever needed positive Tommy, I'm here for them. That's always how I throw it out there.
Well, Sean's the Ranger guy, so that's where Sean and I connect. But anyway, go on.
Even more
an
so.
Islander guy.
All right, nice, very nice. And then Islander, and then also a net.
Yes.
So you're talking about a 2-year-old man who has never seen a championship.
0.
But he always comes back for more. He has season tickets to teams he doesn't even like, the Knicks, etc.
Business ploy.
Yeah, of course, making money off their success.
I respect
now.
it.
Hey,
I respect it.
It's a good move.
It's a great
very
move.
smart. You can say whatever you want about
That
Evan.
team could be terrible, and he'll still make money on his tickets. I mean, it's a great investment.
110%. I think Evan looks at sports as a cautious optimistic.
Okay.
He wants to get excited, but whether it's, and he'll admit to this, whether it's emotionally hedging, for those of you that don't know what that is, he'll bet against his team, you know what I mean?
We've all been there.
We've all been, you
all been
lose, you
there.
win some money. I don't think it makes him feel better, but in the back of his mind, he's hoping it does. I don't know what a world would be like if Evan won a championship, but I wouldn't call him negative, but I would say he's a realist, and he cautiously, optimistically will watch sports. And I think if you were to ask him right now, the team that he's most optimistic about, I don't think it's even a question. It's the Mets.
Has to be.
Yep.
It's not the Jets, I'll tell you that much.
It's definitely not the Jets.
No.
It's 100% not the Brooklyn Nets either.
This Nets fandom, I mean, he's not
that's
from Jersey either. He's from like Westchester, right? Or you grew up on Long Island, right?
Yeah, so he grew up on Long Island, went to high school out there, then he went out to Westchester. I don't know the entire history of why he rooted for the Nets. Maybe
Weren't
his
the
dad,
Nets were
They were in Jersey.
No, I know, but
well, they were at the
before
Coliseum way back in the day.
Yeah, they were in Long Island before they were in Jersey.
So there's a path to his father having been a fan
Yeah,
back in the
maybe.
day.
I was thinking like Jason Kidd, like 2002, 2003. He must have been high school around there. Like
Yeah. And look, I say this as a massive Knicks fan. If you are kind of on the fringe, like especially back in the day, like when they were in Newark, if you wanted to go see a basketball game, it was a lot cheaper to go out to Newark and see the Nets.
Oh, they had great
it's
deals.
tough to get to like the Garden and stuff like that.
I
but-
mean, with hockey, I said to John when I was younger, I used to only go to the Garden once a year, and I would always go to Prudential or Continental because it was always cheaper to see the Rangers in Jersey than it was here.
exactly.
You just had to deal with those monstrous people.
Correct.
terrible people. All right, so that makes sense. Now, what's the group chat like on a big sports night like, Sunday? We got tomorrow coming up, Jets, Tampa, 1 p.m., Mets closing out the series against Washington. The Giants play Sunday night. But, what's the group chat like? I'm assuming the four of you guys on the show have a group chat?
Yeah, so I hate it. I hate group chats in general. It's like one of the worst inventions in the world, in my opinion. I know I'm positive, Tommy. One of the things I'm negative about, though, is
And
is group
ellipses
chats.
are coming to group chat soon.
Yeah.
They're already there. If you have iOS 26, they're there.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. It's in.
it's just, I don't know. For me, it's like if I put my phone down for 5 minutes and I see 150 missed text messages, it gives me a little anxiety. So I'm not the biggest group text guy, but our group text, it's mainly Evan and Sean being bored. and texting us a lot. But on a sports day, like a big football Sunday, it's Tiki breaking down the game.
Okay.
It's Sean saying, like, are the Giants back? You know what I mean? Like, we got one of those last week, newsflash or not. Although I am very optimistic with the Giants as soon as Jackson Dart is a starter. And I do think, much like the Mets, they're building a great future, but currently they're not. And it'll be Evan kind of, talking about the Jets. It'll be some me and fighting. I think Evan uses our group text as a barometer for our show. So if me and Sean are fighting over the success of Daniel Jones with the Colts, and we're kind of going at it, he'll go, oh, they're passionate about that. 4:30 tomorrow. Or, oh, Tiki sent us a story about blah, 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 and he had a real strong take on it. 5:30. Evan already knows what he's going to bring to the table. I think it's a good way for him to have a barometer of what we're doing. Because, like, for example, like with Carton and Roberts, we had a group text, obviously me, Craigie, Mac, and Ev. And the only things we ever texted about was Evan was going to go get Chipotle and he wanted to see if we wanted it. Because it was kind of like Craig did the show. And I always say, like, working with Craig is like riding Space Mountain for the first time. You never know what's going to go left, what's going to go right, and you're kind of along for the ride. Where with our show, where you have like 4 personalities with it, Evan, I think, uses it as a gauge, not always, but especially when there's a lot of sports going on, as a gauge to see what the, hot topics will be for the show for the following day.
And then how hard is it, like, especially in radio, to balance, like, you guys get in arguments on the show, just like everybody does in real life, but, like, it's different on a radio show because, one, you have millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people listening to the conversation you're having and listening to it play out. And then you kind of have to lean into it because you need to be entertaining and the show needs to do well. But sometimes people leave with hurt feelings, right?
Yeah, so that's our families do. And that's what I try to tell, like, whether it's my mom who listens a lot or Sean's mom, my arch nemesis, shout out to Nancy, is that you do have to understand that there is some entertainment involved here. And I know that we're like we're your babies, and mama bears are always going to protect their cubs. And if you guys have kids, you get the deal. But there is a form of entertainment. I'm not saying it's pro wrestling; it's not. But you have to kind of turn the dial up to make it entertaining. And as a person, I'm not saying there aren't days where you don't take something personally, and you can almost hear it on the air when things go a little bit too far, or somebody's a little overly sensitive, which is human nature. You're tired, you're not feeling well, your team's not playing well, traffic stinks, whatever the case may be. Or, and this is part of what makes great radio, is to know what buttons to push.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I was a huge Howard Stern fan back in the day. It's all about pushing those buttons. Sometimes you push that button and you get a great reaction, but maybe it goes too far. You always have to try to not take anything that happens in that booth there to heart or seriously, because we're a team and it's all about the team goals. So you never want to take it to, I'm not going to sit there and say that there aren't days that I don't take something personally, or Sean doesn't, or Evan doesn't. Tiki's tough to get. I know we've broken him a couple times and he screamed. He's a tough one to get riled up as far as taking anything sensitive. But I would speak more for just me, Evan, and Sean. There are days I'm sure that we get sensitive, but you have to fight against it.
It's funny you say that about the moms and stuff, because I had the opposite with my mom when I worked in radio, where she would text me after a really bad day and be like, "That was so funny," and I would be like, "Well, not."
She'd laugh at your expense
too.
too.
She would be like, "Oh, like you're all having fun, right?" And I'd be like, "I wasn't having fun today. Like I left in a terrible mood." And my mom's like, "That was great. Like they really got you."
Well, that's a great point, because, and that's part of it too, is that, and I always feel this way, it's about the audience. Did they enjoy that?
It's all that matters, right?
All right, there's a time where I'm going to take an L, or I'm going to take a beating on the air, or I'm going to get screamed at, or I may lose a Lugash debate series, or I may not talk a lot in this segment, or whatever the case may be. It's about, does the audience like it? Are we satisfying our audience? Are they appreciative of it? And if that's the case, to me, it doesn't matter. Like and I have that discussion with my mom sometimes where I'm like, "Mom, it's about or whoever, friends, whoever will hit me up. It's about the audience and what I think they enjoyed the most." And I know, at least for me, like if I'm entertaining everybody, whether that's being, as a part of an ensemble here, or if I'm doing my own show, whether there's like a Lugauer or a weekend show, all I care about is making somebody in that car laugh. Because think about it. You're in traffic. Life, it can be tough. It's supposed to be an escape, especially sports talk radio. It should be like fun, entertaining, with some knowledge. And I try to like make it funny and a little more loose, so that if you are in the car with someone who's maybe not a sports fan, they're not going to make you change the dial because it's, more to the masses. So I think that's always another important thing to take into account when you're doing sports talk radio, to do more, broader topics that bring in, a larger audience.
So, sorry to cut you off. So December 9th, the Monday after Juan Soto made his decision. Mets and Yankees fans all over the place. I mean, this decision separated families to this very day. Some families are still fighting over it, especially now that Juan has surpassed his career high in home runs. And Yankee fans Yankee fans said he can never do that, leaving the stadium, leaving Judge behind. Some people on your airwaves said this is going to be one of the worst contracts in sports history. We won't name names, but many takes.
Well, I can name them. You're talking about the law firm of McPherson, McMonagle, and Marash.
And also, and there's another one. There's another one.
But I don't have a nickname for them yet. So if I have stick for you, I'll just use it. But yes, the law firm of McPherson, McMonagle, and Marash.
3M.
Which is I apologize for cutting you off. No. I think that is what makes this area so great is you have a choice. I always bring up Kansas City. I don't know why. They're just a random example. But if you live in Kansas City, you're a Royal fan, you're a Chief fan. Here, you can be a Yankee fan. You could be a Met fan, Giant fan, Jet fan, Nick, Ned, obviously 3 hockey teams. So the line in the sand is drawn, and it becomes from like families. It's passed down from generation to generation. Or maybe it's like Game of Thrones. Like my dad was a Yankee fan, but I became a Met fan. And it is just one of the things that I hope never goes away in the city, the passion. And like I said, there'll never be peace between Met fans and Yankee fans, and I hope there never will be, because I think it makes this town so great. So I love that stuff. So I kid with the law firm stuff. At least on my end, it's all in good fun. But it's what makes our area so great, and also our medium so great. Sports talk radio, podcasting, the whole deal, social media, because there are lines in the sand. We're not all on the same side. It's great.
But I feel like with Soto, like it kind of got real. It was the first time ever where the Mets truly muscled up and like beat the Yankees on something that big with a player that young, that great, that talented, that generational. Like, we've never seen it before.
It also was a mix because like even though the Yankees went to the World Series last year, the story, everything was about the Mets last year. Like even though we only went to the NLCS, when the offseason hit, all people were talking about was how magical 2024 was for this team.
Right. And then the Yankees blow it in the World Series the way they do, and then Soto becomes a free agent. And then their pennant goes away, and now it's all about, are they going to lose this guy? Not just lose him, but to the crosstown for a long time, quote unquote, little brother Mets. Mm-hmm. And then they do. And then, that stung them. They're still trying to justify, Bellinger's good value. Like, no, this guy is one of the best hitters, not the best hitter in baseball. So I'm wondering if there were actually true grudges that developed at the station, like you and Sean. Did you and Sean really have it out for a little bit over the Soto thing?
So, I mean, Sean and I essentially broke in the business together. The way I would equate not just my relationship with Sean, but the relationship of our show, Evan and Tiki, is Evan and Tiki are the two parents driving the car down to Disney, and me and Sean are the brothers in the backseat bickering, fighting over the iPad. So part of our dynamic, which is natural because we've been like this forever, we just haven't worked together in the same show. We've obviously been at the same station, or he was over at the national network for a while, but we've always been in the same group chat. We have a whole bunch of friends, John Jastrzemski, Chris Lepresti, et cetera. So we kind of grew up together. So we've been kind of like a clique, so to speak. So we're obviously, good friends. But when it comes to sports, we view the Giants differently. He's a Yankee fan. I'm a Met fan. He likes the Rangers. I hate the Rangers. He's a Net fan. I'm a Knicks fan. So it's perfect. And I think that our personalities are similar but different. I think we're both, could be quick-witted. We like to be funny, but in different ways. So I think we have that perfect balance. And I always feel and I think he kind of feels the same way. He tries to, the best he can, to represent the Yankee fan that's upset Soto left. And I take it on to be the Met fan to celebrate that Soto sign. So I say, Yankee fans are going through the 7 stages of Soto grief. And we've seen, he's not happy and he doesn't smile enough. He's standing in the outfield. I don't know what you want the guy to do. He's doing cartwheels. It's boring standing in the outfield. Or that he quit on a baseball field in Boston. Or when he was moping around in Minnesota, it was 10 degrees outside. It was the second weekend of the season. And obviously Juan is now having an MVP season. You can make a strong argument that he is the MVP of the National League. But you hit on something, and it's true. The Yankees took a public L, but they took it also to the Mets. And I think that's something, A, they've never been through, and B, it's just something that the fans are not used to. So, yeah, I, for one, came out and said that the Mets are now Big Brother, which, of course, Yankee fans don't like that I say that, which, okay, but I'll keep saying it. And obviously there's a reason they don't like hearing it. But I believe it because I feel like Juan Soto picked the Mets because he believes their future is better. And I don't know at any point in the history of both franchises. And look, the Yankees are always going to be great. They've been great. They're always going to be great. But there's room at the table for the Mets, and they've arrived. And I think it's the best thing because I think competition always brings out the best. And now both sides are competing for free agents, and I think that's awesome for the fans.
And like Vito said, like last year, it is true. You know, you could be a Yankee fan, you could say what you want, we went further, yada yada. This place was the place to be. And it still is. And I love Evan because it's not often where the Mets and Yankees are home simultaneously. That's a pretty rare thing. But when they are, it is so interesting to see the attendances head to head. And as Evan had pointed out repeatedly, especially August, the Mets were out drawing the Yankees. And I can say this, and, you know, sure, I'm a little partial, but this place is so much more fun to watch a baseball game. The entertainment, the food, the fans, the music, everything about it. It's just a better place to be. And I think that they all kind of know that deep down. Well, they see the way that things are trending. That's what it is.
We went to the Subway Series this year, and like me and you were both talking about it. There were things they were doing on the board that they've never done before that felt almost inauthentic, that they were trying to be like, hey, we're fun now. We can do silly stuff.
Want to hear some nonsense? You know the pitching change sequence we do here?
Yes.
They copied that, dude.
Really?
They started doing the stand clear the closing doors bit.
In the postseason.
We started that last April.
They started doing it in the postseason, too, which was even crazier when even more eyes are on it.
It's super cool. It reminds me of like a college football atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like I love it. Now, when I first heard about it, I'm like, oh, do we do it for our pitchers to like pump them up? I'm like, oh, we do it for the opposing. That's super cool. But yeah, it reminds me of like college football. Like I think it creates a lot of viral moments, sort of an intimidation for the reliever coming into the game. I think it's the perfect tone because I think the thing you have to balance, and I'm sure you guys go through this, is like when you're at a game, balancing the digesting of the game, but also with the stuff that goes with it, whether it's features in the middle of the innings or noise during the game. And I think there's a perfect balance because you have to understand. Yes, there are diehards that go to every game, Evan, who doesn't want people to stand up and cheer. But then there's the family that comes for one game and they have 3 little kids. And not for nothing, I know there's a pitch clock, but there could be slow moments during a baseball game. So by adding those things, you open yourself up to more people coming to the ballpark because there's something for everybody. And I think that's in any form of entertainment. Like you can't just, placate to the diehards. You have to do things that are, more for the masses. And I think that Citi Field has added a lot of things over the last couple of years. The scoreboard, like this is it was a Queen's Crew. I don't want to get their name wrong. Queen's Crew. So,
mascot race.
Yeah, mascot race. So there's been so many new features over the last couple of years. And look, the attendance has been great this year. And I think the excitement, the Met fans showed up and showed out this year. And I think that has a lot to do with, of course, the success of last year. Of course, of Juan Soto. But also just the fact that I think they believe. They do. As negative as they could be sometimes, they believe. And when you give the fans a product and stuff to do at the park, or Citi Field. Again, I don't want to get the names wrong, but I believe it's Citi Field. It's just a million things to do, and it's just an awesome experience.
So I want to go back a little because you were talking about, the differences with working with Evan, and then you talked about the group chat you had with Craig when that was different. And then before the show, you were telling us about working with Mike and Steve Summers. So we just want to hear a little bit about like how different it is working with all of these different hosts throughout your radio career.
Yeah, so I grew up listening to the station. I was a huge Joe Beningo fan, of course, just because I loved his passion, and I would listen to Joe late at night because I'd go to school, so I wouldn't hear. This is back when Imus was in the morning. I wouldn't be able to hear. I think it was Sid and Jody Mack doing middays, and of course Mike and Chris in the afternoons. I'd be at school. I'd be at sports practice or whatever, so I wouldn't be able to intake or ingest a lot of that. A program, even Steve, I'd be watching the games, but Joe would be the perfect timing. I'd be ready to go to bed. I'd pop Joe on, especially on a Sunday, Jet Loss. It's must listen radio. So I grew up as a fan, and it was really the only thing I ever wanted to do. Like most people, it's career day. They want to be the center fielder for the Mets, or they want to be a lawyer, or they want to be the president of the United States. I wanted to work at WFAN. Fortunately, through just hard work and luck, I was able to get an internship there. So when I first started meeting Joe, like I'll never forget so I started in the Astoria days, which was like punk rock. Like it was just like the Kaufman Astoria Studios, WFAN, you've heard about it forever. And I expected when I got there that it was going to be this like, grandiose place. And it was like a dump. So I was like, really? This is where the fan is? So you had to walk down. It was like Alice in Wonderland. You had to walk down like this huge path. This is me interviewing for my internship. I get to the door. I'm meeting with the great Eddie Scazzeri, who's retiring this coming year. I can't say enough great things about Eddie, one of the all-time salt of the earth humans and just as talented as it gets in terms of what he's done for the business. I was meeting with him for my internship, and they had like this, almost like the phone the president has, like it's a red phone. So you pick up the phone, and then someone would let you in. That person was Joe Beningo. Now, Joe obviously never met me. He looked me up and down like, who's this freaking kid, all right, bro? Who are we talking about? Who are you? And I'm like his biggest, fan. So I just was like, real quick, hey, Joe, how you doing? Did the meeting with Eddie. And Joe and I have now become like I would say friends, and we've worked together for years. Point is that you grow up listening to people, and all of a sudden you're next to them. Like, think about it. Like, even for like you guys, like, dude, I watched Juan Soto on TV, and now I'm like, standing next to the guy. Like, but you can't be starstruck because they're your coworker, but you're working, sort of for them, sort of with them. And obviously through the years you get more comfortable and you get to be more of on a, first name basis or, just more friendly with the host. But it's a business that you work a lot of strange hours. You got to work your way up, but it can be very rewarding when you get, either, to the top or close to the top. And I've been on Afternoon Drive now for 5 years working with the best. So, there's still a lot of room to grow, but it's awesome. It beats having a job. Like I could come dressed like this and it's great. And you get to talk sports and it's an escape. So it's awesome. And it's all I've ever wanted to do. So I'm very fortunate.
So I interned there, network side, 2013.
Yeah. Sean was telling me.
My first day, I met Sean, yes. My first day of my internship, Rangers are in DC playing a Game 7. And I grew up a huge Steve Summers fan.
Uh-huh.
I would sleep with a radio and I'd listen to Steve after a Mets win or a Mets loss. And I had to write a senior paper in high school, and I wrote it about Mets fandom, and you had to have like sources. I called the fan, and I got through to Steve's show, and I said, hey, I'd like to interview. They put me on hold. He actually called me and talked to me for like 35 minutes. So I was like, huge Steve Summers fan. So fast forward, day one of the internship. I am in the studio, and this guy's walking around saying Rangers in 7, like his famous Rangers in 7.
Rangers in 7.
And I'm sitting there, and he's right there saying it. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. Actually, I got in trouble. David Meyernick had to call me the next day. So the president was in town, like UN, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not missing this Ranger game. I'm a really big Ranger fan.
Uh-huh.
So like the Port Authority's jammed up. I'm living in central Jersey. Commute would be 2 hours. I'd miss the whole thing. I'm like, I'm just going to watch the game here. And I was probably, acting out a little bit. Everyone's like, who's this kid?
Yeah.
But I stay in the studio, and the Rangers win 5-0 on the road, Game 7, and I'm high-fiving everybody. And Meyernick the next day was like, you probably shouldn't be like hanging around, chilling, watching the game,
Right.
high-fiving everyone. But I'm like, there's Steve Summers saying Rangers in 7. This is the coolest thing ever. So I feel you. For me, like that's Howie Rose and Gary Cohen. We see them all the time upstairs, and I've gotten to know Howie and Gary pretty well, and like, those guys are your heroes when you're a diehard Mets fan.
Yeah.
You're growing up, I wanted to be a play-by-play announcer when I was younger. It didn't work out for me like that, but like that's the bread and butter of who you like idolize. So it's kind of crazy when you're young and then, it turns out to be what it is.
Yeah, and it's like you work with your heroes, and then you get to meet people like a Pete Alonso. And also this to me is the most satisfying thing, because like I think about the time I met Joe, or I met Francesa, or I met Mad Dog, or I met Boomer, or Craig, whoever, and I meet a celebrity that comes through, or an athlete, and I just know the feeling I get. But then a fan comes up to me, and like they're like, "Oh, I love you." There's nothing more like gratifying in your life that like somebody listens to you, appreciates you. We were talking about this off air. There's nothing like sports talk radio. It's such a personal relationship. It's such a one-on-one relationship. The audience feels like that we're best friends. They know me. They know all about my life. They feel like they grew up with me. So when they meet me, it's like we've just long lost friends catching up. And that's the beauty that you can't really replicate on any other medium. Radio is just such a personal one-on-one connection with the audience. So that's why I love doing like any kind of remote or anything like that. Cause even if 3 people know who I am, it makes all the work, worth it.
Yeah. My first day as an internship when I was at Sirius, like I'd always wanted to work in late night television. That was like what I wanted to do. My first day at Sirius, like I remember watching being there for the live show, sitting in the booth and like watching all the calls come in and then watching the host, I worked for Ron Bennington, New York radio legend, and like watching Ron interact with the callers live and being like, oh, this is so much better than any sort of like talk show or anything else because like you're actually like talking to the people who listen. And like, you're like that's another reason why like the radio listener feels so much closer to the host because there's no other thing where you can call up the person you're listening to and just give them your opinion.
Also true. Right. Exactly. I can call up, you could talk to me. And again, like the callers, especially the regulars are like a fabric of the station. Yeah. The Jerome and Manhattans, the Bruce and Baysides, et cetera. People that they're like characters on a TV show. Like we're really like a TV show, but instead of like only having an 8-year run, we have a 25, 30, 50, 100-year run. Now, obviously, some of the cast members change, and obviously some of the callers, unfortunately, either they pass away or they just stop calling for whatever reason. But they're a fabric of our city and of our station and of our lives. Like you just grow up not only listening to a host, but a frequent caller all the time. And they're like, they're screaming or they're whatever, they're funny, whatever they bring to the table. And that's just something, you don't get in any other form of entertainment.
And last year, when we had Mike on the show, Mike Francesa, John, not only because John got Mike the tickets, you got him 4, right?
I got him 4 right behind the plate. SNY showed them. They're like, what? What's the man and Bob Husler
and Steve, right? And Steve. Oh yeah, we were in Philly for obviously Knicks Sixers, and we saw them on TV. That was a great shot.
Cubs.
Yep,
yeah.
And you didn't know he was bringing all of them, right?
No, he dude, dealing with Mike, just the whole thing. He's like, yeah, I'll take 4 tickets. I hope I could say, he's not going to listen to this. He goes,
no, this is Meet Me at the Apple with Vinny and Jonathan.
Dude, he goes, make him nice. That's what he said about the tickets.
We have a drop of him. I had very good seats for the game that we play. Like with him, if I'm talking or Evan and just drop Mike, I had very good seats for the game.
The day after he went on his podcast, he said, thank you to Jonathan and Vinny for having me on their show, Meet Me at the Apple. And I was like, I like that almost better than if he said it right. And then also like, we were getting ready to record the interview with Mike
my God.
And Carlos Mendoza. So we're in the press conference room. So Carlos Mendoza is getting ready to do the press conference. And this was the day after Pete had got thrown out at home against the Cubs last year, early in the season. And Mike, in a loud, booming voice, just starts saying, what is he going to say? I was dead wrong and I shouldn't have sent him. And me and John are just like, oh my God, we're going to get in so much trouble.
Bashing the manager. Then we have a Citi Connect helmet on display on the table.
This didn't make the episode.
He picks it up. This is while we're recording too. So the bashing Mendoza thing's before. So he thinks like whatever.
Helmet.
We could say whatever we want.
Yeah.
Now we're recording. And he's just like mid-thought talking about him and Dog fighting over the years. He picks up the helmet off the table and he goes, by the way, this thing is terrible. Who came up with these things? Just bashing Citi Connect. Like probably a week after we unveiled them.
He said, this is, and then he looked at the camera and he said, I blame you, the consumer.
Yeah, for buying it.
I blame you, the consumer, for buying the softball crap.
It was unbelievable. The Mendoza thing was worse because
we thought we were going to get in trouble.
He's like literally bashing Carlos Mendoza. And this wall here is probably no thicker than, I don't know, 6 inches of like sheetrock. And that's it. And you could hear what's going on outside and vice versa. And he's just screaming about how Mendoza is, wantonly just challenging things. And I'm just like, oh no, please. And we can't tell him to stop. What are we going to say?
I know this having worked now I've worked with pretty much everybody that's ever, stepped foot in WFAN over the last, 15 years it is. There are certain hosts that there's no off switch. They're always doing a sports talk radio show. Evan's one of them. Evan is always doing, Sean's like that too. They're always doing the show.
So who they are is who they are in the show. That's not an act, is what you're saying.
Yeah, not an act, and also just that they just love to do the show. We all love it, but they always like to just give their opinion on something. Even though there's not a microphone on, they're giving their opinion on it. Mm-hmm. And I think that, maybe Mike fell into that category there or something. But I've seen it, like even Dog will do that, or my buddy John Jastrzemski, like we'll be sitting in traffic and he'll be like breaking it down like it's the Yankee bullpen, and I'm like, well, it's just traffic, but you could, but they're always on, and I admire that. But that's and I think that you need a little bit of that to be in this industry because it is, you have to be a performer. Like you have to be live, you have to be on, you're talking for hours on end, you have to know what you're talking about and also entertain. So it helps to be like that.
All right, we're getting close to first pitch, so we'll wrap this up shortly, but I want to get your opinion on this. Obviously, NFL season never really ends. You got the draft. Tiki on your show, like football is a huge part of the New York sports scene. We know that. I believe, I've always believed, I still believe, New York is a baseball town through and through. I think a lot of it has to do with the Mets and Yankees, maybe not simultaneously being successful, but like the Yankees haven't had a losing season since I was like 1 year old, and they've won a lot. Now the Mets obviously have had this sustained success. The Knicks getting relevant again helps the NBA, but the other team in town, it's just not happening. Sorry, Evan. And while I love the NHL and 3 teams really makes for that intense rivalry, and the people that love the NHL really love it.
No doubt about it.
I think laying that all on the table, I think it's a baseball town. Do you agree with that? Being on the side of hearing the callers and talking about sports for 4.5 hours every day on the radio.
I think the NFL is king. I don't think
Even
there's
in New York?
There's no disputing that football is the most popular sport. And the reason why it's the most popular sport, at least in my opinion, is that your team can stink, but you would watch the Jaguars and the Citadel at 3 a.m. on a streaming service that you don't even subscribe to because it's football, where you might not watch Angels Dodgers on Sunday night if you're a baseball fan. That being said, in New York, baseball's number one. It is number one.
I meant New York, by the way, just in this market.
Yes. That I think it's just, and part of the reason is because you have so many other football fans around here. You have Cowboy fans, you have Steeler fans, you have Giant fans, you have Dolphin fans, you have Steeler fans. So it's basically Yankees and Mets. There's a couple of stragglers of other fan bases, but you really, if you draw the line, it's Yankees, Mets, where football, it's fans of a lot of different teams, not just the Giants and Jets. So I do think football is the most popular across the board in terms of, nationally, but here, the root of this, of New York, tri-state area, Jersey, Connecticut, will always be baseball. And you've seen it now with the Soto stuff. Because to me, if, Malik Neighbors signed with the Jets, you would not have the same type of visceral reaction on both sides like you did with Juan Soto. To me, Juan Soto, and maybe it was getting a little dormant perhaps, I don't know, but it lit that flame and it sparked that rivalry, which is, yes, I agree with you. It is number one here.
And we need the 2 teams in the same division. When they realign,
well, that's coming.
If they do, they have to do it.
It's coming.
Baseball will take over if they do that. Baseball, like Red Sox, Mets, Yankees, Philly, like I can't even imagine what the discourse will be like if that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you factor in the fact the Red Sox would be also a rivalry.
And I like the Red Sox because the friend of your friend's the enemy.
But they won't. But not anymore. Exactly.
But we've had this argument a bunch.
Oh, I know where you're going with that.
Well, you brought it up, so
That's
I thought
fine.
we were going there.
That's fine. That's fine.
Because I think there's another level to all of the teams, like in which one is the most popular. And I actually think it's the Knicks because the Knicks don't have any competition. The Knicks.
That's not nice.
It's just true.
That's not nice.
The Knicks have a stranglehold on New York basketball. And I do think that when it comes to what singular team has the most fans in New York, I still think it's the Knicks.
Who would have the biggest parade, I guess, is a good way of...
Wow. You're pulling out multiple heartstrings here because I'm a huge Knicks guy.
I'm a bigger Mets fan than anything, and I still think it's the Knicks.
See, the Knicks fan, I hope, learned their lesson. And I don't hate the Knicks. I'm not a big NBA guy. But what I saw outside the Garden after beating Boston in the second round, as an independent observer...
But that's a lot of TikTokers and a lot of people that are just looking to get views.
Sure.
Which I think that... And I'll even say that. I think the Knicks... They do have people that just jump on the bandwagon and just want to. It's Midtown, it's Madison Square Garden.
That's New York sports. He was a Nets fan when he lived in Brooklyn 2 years ago.
I think what would benefit
I enjoyed a winning team. They had won 17 of 19 at one point. Go on.
What would benefit a Knick parade is the time of year. It will be warm.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be the summer. So I think that helps them a lot. I lean Knicks would have the biggest parade, but I think the Mets are like a close second. But I lean Knicks because I hear you. And I say this all the time, partially to need 11, that, the Knicks, they're basically the only basketball team around, or they have the overwhelming majority of fans. And if they're going to have bandwagon, like, let's be honest, if the Nets did make the finals with KD and Kyrie and Harden, I don't know if there would have been people that would have been bandwagon. Maybe.
No, I don't think so, because most people who are Knicks fans, you lived in Brooklyn. It's unfair. most people who are New York basketball fans grew up loving the Knicks and were staying with the Knicks. Look,
they were so bad for so long.
It doesn't matter though.
The Nets had a chance.
No, man. The Nets the fan base the Nets has, and I'll say this to Evan directly.
Talking about the kid years
the Nets,
or with KD?
No, when they went to Brooklyn, if the Nets won a title or two, while the Knicks were still struggling before Jalen got to New York, then the kids that are growing up, the kids that are 6 to 10 years old, they're having their parents buy them a Durant jersey, a Kyrie jersey. They had a chance. They didn't capitalize on it.
The Nets fan base is transplants.
I think that they had a better chance.
The Nets core fan base is people who move to New York, maybe live in Brooklyn, and go, it would be fun to root for the team in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I could see that. It could even be a kind of a touristy site. It's a cheaper place to go see a basketball game. It is hard to fight. We could talk about the Knicks and how many years it's been since they won a championship, but it's a lot of history there with MSG. There's a lot of history with the Knicks, and there's something about that building and that team and the celebrities that are there and just the aura around the Knicks.
Tyrese Halliburton just did an interview the other day with Spike Lee where he said, like, Spike asked him, is it the hardest place to play? And he was like, no, because you get fired up. Like, it's the opposite. That building is the most special building to play in, that when you get there, you want to perform.
It's funny, out of anything we've said here, this is the thing I'm so closely watching what I say, because this is what Evan's going to cut up and play back. If I say anything polite about the Nets, he'll go, but hold on a second, Loogie. Didn't you say the Mets are now ahead of the Yankees? So could the Nets technically have gotten ahead of the Knicks? So he'll use this again. So I have to always play chess with Evan. So, but I tried to be the most political I can with that answer there, but yeah, I do think it would be the Knicks as far as the parade because of the things you laid out there. And the Nets have, I mean, when you take a swing and you have to give them credit for doing that and you miss, boy. But
missed by a toe.
But they did.
They did.
Same token, the Knicks have a window here, 3 to 5 years, and they have to win a championship. Like, I lived through the 90s Knicks, and I think in a lot of ways they're glorified, and I think they're almost overrated. They did not win a title, and I don't want to live through that again. I love the growth, and I love the climb, and to me, they at bare minimum have to get to the finals this year, because when you think of the path, Indiana's down, although they do still scare me. Boston's down, they do still scare me. Atlanta's gotten better. Orlando's gotten better. Cleveland, Detroit will be a pain in the neck. They have to at least get to the finals, but they also have to win a championship in the Jalen Brunson era. Otherwise, it would be deemed as a failure. They have to win.
Yeah, and they're doing that. The cat trade, they're not sitting on their hands. I agree with you. I was thinking Jets.
Question.
I was thinking Jets. I was thinking Mets. Hungry fan bases, but the Knicks are also a hungry fan base. They
retire the question. Hang the question up in the rafters. It's never coming up again.
To be fair, we've had this discussion on Evan and Tiki, and it's not always a slam dunk. Like, this is right up Evan's alley. Like we've literally had this discussion.
We had this argument in front of Evan, and we screamed at each other.
Yeah, and I think Evan thinks it's the Knicks. I'll ask him when I see him on Monday, but I'm pretty sure he's on the Knicks side of being the biggest parade because of the amount of fans, as far as the percentage wise, the weather, the amount of years it's been since they won a title. I'll ask him again, and he'll get a kick out of that. We had this discussion though.
All right, well, Tommy, thanks so much. We want to get you out to the game, but guys, if you listen to this interview, remember, Meet at the Apple, available Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Please give us a rate and review, 5 stars. Leaving that review, typing something out goes such a long way. Helps us grow the show, helps us get more guests. Tommy, you can hear every day on WFAN, middays with Evan and Tiki, and then Tommy, you're live 6 p.m.?
Yeah, so afternoons, so 2 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Evan and Tiki, and then you could hear me after, when there's not a Yankee game, 6:30 p.m. for the Lugauer.